Okay, so in this video we're going to look at how you can use the levels meters within your DAW to make more informed decisions about your mixers. And this is going to benefit your mixers because if you've got a mix where nothing is like making your mix peak, everything's at a consistent volume, then you can essentially get a louder track. Now, I'm using Logic in this, and I've found Logic is a little bit inaccurate sometimes with this technique that I'm going to show you, but it is still definitely helpful. When I've used Ableton in the past and in the present, that is very reliable for this. So I've got this project and I'm basically going to mute the snare and the bongos for the time being, and we're just going to listen to the main bulk of the project. And that little peak at -5.6 is what I meant by Logic being a little bit inaccurate, because it doesn't actually do that peak at -5.6 on the loop of this section. But about -8 is where we're sort of averaging and peaking. And if you noticed, I was just clicking on the green number to reset it. So if it peaks a little bit higher, you can click on that number and it'll reset. So now we've put the snare back in, and we're going to have a listen to where it's peaking now. And you can see that straight away, as soon as the snare hits, it peaks at -3.8. And again, a little bit inaccurate, -4.3 there, and -3.1. But it does tell us that our snare's too loud. But that might not be totally obvious by ear. So what we're going to do is, on our snare track, just going to turn it down by a few decibels. So it's at -3.1. Let's turn it down to about -6.5. And you can see straight away it's peaking at a lower level. So again, inaccurate, but it does tell us that we're making improvements. So let's turn it down a bit more. Still slightly high at -5.5. But we have made an improvement there. So one other thing we can do, there might be a frequency clash here that we can address using the equalizer. So let's just have a look if there's any peaks in the snare on the EQ. And there are a couple of frequencies there in the mid-range that are just peaking a little bit higher than the rest. So let's try minimizing them with some tight bandwidth equalization. So turning up the Q so it just hits that point. And use another one of our EQ filters to minimize that lower peak. And there we go, that's made a big difference. So it's now peaking at -8.5. A little bit of a blip there, we could take it down a bit more, or that might just be Logic being inaccurate. And again, at this point you need to be using your ears, make sure you're not turning it down too much. And now let's check these bongos. So same thing. And we can see that the bongos there, when they hit, it does peak a little bit higher. So let's address that volume, turn it down by a couple of decibels. And again, click in the number to reset it. And again, we've made some improvements there. Now we could go into more depth and use the EQ. Again, just minimizing that mid-range where a lot of your instruments contain frequency content, and that would further assist in things not clashing and not peaking the master. Okay, so we're going to have a look at the same techniques within a project that's just got a little bit more going on. So this is another work in progress. We're just going to have a listen through, and we can notice that in the break it's peaking around -16. Gets to the drop, we're peaking at -13. It's a fairly healthy level. We want that bit of a difference between the break and the drop. But one thing that we are going to notice in this project is there's going to be some individual notes that make the master peak. So all pretty good so far. It's not going above -13. So there's a little one there, which we might address. Ooh, but then it peaks at -9.2 somewhere. So just going to go back a couple of bars and listen out for that. There we go. So it's happening somewhere in bar 52, I think. There we go. So let's just loop bar 52. Okay, so it's happening on that second beat. So I think it's that second bass note which is actually making this peak. So what I'm going to do here is actually just snip out that single bass note and turn it down. You can see it on the individual channel as well. So here we go, just using Command and T to slice that out. Go up into the track inspector and just turn that down by a few decibels. So it's an improvement already. I'm just going to apply a quick crossfade between these samples. And just turn that down a little bit more still. So I'm fairly happy with that. It's gone from peaking at -9 to peaking at -12. So this does become a little bit time consuming sometimes, because if you've got like recorded instruments, you may have to go through and look for individual hits which actually make it peak. But another thing I've done here to again sort of get a bit more separation between them instruments is on this first track, which is actually my kick, I've created a little bit of a peak at 75 Hz. Now that's to help the kick shine through. I've removed all the sub frequencies as well, below 30. And in my neutron bass, I've taken out 75 Hz. That's to allow that punch of the kick to come through without clashing. Now this does need a little bit more work because there are some peaks in the subline around there. But if I turn off this EQ, we'll see on the master, it peaks at -12 as soon as that EQ comes off. Pop the EQ back on, and we're peaking at -16. So a couple of techniques there, working with the levels meters to inform yourself on where you've got peaks in your track, and also using the EQ to separate things out from each other to again allow that stereo output to sit at a lower volume and not peak, because the more consistent your waveform is, the easier it is to make your track loud. You know, if you've got your snares standing out, then it's going to reduce the overall volume of your track.